The starship shimmered as it descended through Earth's atmosphere, a sleek, crystalline vessel that seemed more grown than built. Its pilot, Commander Veln of the Axorian Interstellar Peace Fleet, gazed out at the planet below with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Veln's species, the Axorians, prided themselves on their mastery of diplomacy and the peaceful resolution of conflicts, a stark contrast to the violent tendencies humanity was infamous for. This visit to the Human Military Academy was not one of choice but necessity. Reports of human aggression and technological advancement had alarmed the Axorian High Council. Veln had been tasked with assessing whether humanity was a potential ally or a threat. As the ship landed on a designated pad, Veln stepped out, their tall, willowy frame shimmering faintly under Earth's sun. The Axorians' translucent skin reflected light in prismatic hues, an ethereal appearance that often left other species in awe. Waiting to greet them was Captain Elena Marks, the Academy's liaison for interspecies diplomacy. Her crisp uniform and steady gaze exuded authority, but her warm smile hinted at a more personable nature beneath the military veneer. "Commander Veln," she said, extending a hand. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Captain Marks, and I'll be your guide during your visit." Veln regarded the offered hand curiously before mimicking the gesture. Their touch was cool and oddly delicate, like holding a fragment of mist made solid. "Thank you, Captain Marks. I hope this exchange will be enlightening for both our peoples." The Academy loomed behind her, a sprawling complex of towering buildings and expansive training grounds. It was an imposing sight, designed to inspire discipline and respect. To Veln, however, it seemed a monument to humanity's fixation on conflict. The commander's large, multifaceted eyes flitted across the scene, noting the stark contrast between the Academy's utilitarian design and the natural beauty of Earth's surroundings. "Shall we begin the tour?" Marks asked, gesturing toward a wide avenue lined with statues of human military leaders. As they walked, Marks launched into an explanation of the Academy's history and its role in shaping humanity's military elite. Veln listened politely, though their attention was more focused on the people around them. Groups of recruits marched in unison, their faces set in expressions of grim determination. In the distance, the sharp retort of gunfire echoed from a firing range. "This facility trains not only soldiers but leaders," Marks continued. "We emphasize strategy, adaptability, and resilience." Veln tilted their head, a gesture of polite inquiry. "And violence, it seems." Marks hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, violence is a part of it, but only as a last resort. We prepare our people to protect and defend, not to provoke." "Interesting," Veln replied, though their tone betrayed skepticism. "In my culture, violence is viewed as a failure of intellect and diplomacy. The very concept of training for it is unsettling." Marks smiled faintly, as though she'd expected this. "You'll find humans to be full of contradictions, Commander. Perhaps by the end of your visit, you'll see the bigger picture." They passed a group of recruits undergoing physical training. Young men and women climbed ropes, sprinted through obstacle courses, and carried heavy loads with visible effort. Their labored breaths and determined expressions fascinated Veln, who had never witnessed such physical exertion. Axorian society relied on intellectual prowess and advanced technology. Their bodies, while graceful and resilient, were not built for such strenuous activities. One recruit stumbled, falling hard onto the ground. A superior barked an order, and the young man forced himself back up, face flushed with pain and embarrassment. Veln paused, their translucent brow furrowing. This emphasis on physicality, is it not inefficient? They asked. Marks glanced at the scene and then at Veln. Strength isn't just about the body. It's about the will. Humans push themselves because, in the direst moments, that perseverance can mean the difference between life and death. Veln said nothing, but their unease deepened. To them, the idea of cultivating strength through hardship was as alien as their own shimmering form must have seemed to these humans. The tour continued to the indoor training facilities. Here, Recruits practiced hand-to-hand combat, their movements precise yet brutal. Velen watched as two sparring partners engaged in a flurry of strikes and counters, their faces masks of concentration. The raw intensity of the scene made the Axorians' crystalline skin ripple faintly, a physical manifestation of their discomfort. "This is barbaric," Velen murmured, unable to hide their disapproval. Marx's expression hardened slightly. "It's preparation. Out there, on the battlefield, there are no guarantees. We give them the tools to survive." "And yet," Velen countered, "your tools seem to foster a cycle of violence. How does one break free from it if this is what you teach?" Marx hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's not about perpetuating violence, Commander. It's about ensuring that when peace is threatened, we're ready to defend it." Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden blare of an alarm. Marx's radio crackled to life, and a voice announced a scheduled drill. She led Velen to an observation room overlooking a vast simulation chamber. Below, recruits took positions in a meticulously crafted urban environment, preparing for a mock battle. Velen observed silently as the drill began. The scene was chaotic. Smoke, simulated explosions, and the shouted orders of young officers trying to maintain cohesion. Despite the apparent disorder, there was a method to the madness. Teams adapted quickly to changing conditions, their movements a blend of strategy and instinct. To Velen, it was a paradox. The humans were undeniably effective, their tactics demonstrating a level of creativity and ingenuity that was both impressive and disconcerting. Yet the violence at the core of it all felt irreconcilable with Axorian ideals. As the drill ended, Marx turned to Velen. "What do you think?" Velen hesitated before responding. "I see potential and danger. Your people are capable of remarkable feats, but the means by which you achieve them are troubling." Marx nodded thoughtfully. "I understand your perspective, Commander, but perhaps as we continue, you'll see that our methods, while imperfect, are born from necessity." Velen inclined their head, their translucent features unreadable. "I hope so, Captain Marx, for your sake and ours." As they left the observation room, Velen couldn't shake the sense of unease that had settled over them. Humanity was unlike any species they had encountered. Fierce, contradictory, and deeply, irrepressibly alive. It was a thought that both intrigued and unsettled them, hinting at challenges yet to come. Commander Velen followed Captain Marx into a darkened chamber lined with tiered seating. Below them, a massive holographic display flickered to life, projecting a battlefield that shifted and morphed with uncanny realism. Soldiers moved through the simulation, their actions monitored by instructors seated at consoles. Every move, every decision was tracked and analyzed. "This is our tactical simulation room," Marx explained, her voice steady but tinged with pride. "Here, we test scenarios ranging from skirmishes to full-scale invasions. The environment adapts based on the participants' decisions, creating a dynamic, unpredictable experience." Velen's multifaceted eyes scanned the scene, their sharp gaze dissecting the chaos unfolding on the display. Human soldiers fought against simulated enemies, their movements deliberate but fluid, as though they were improvising within a larger framework of strategy. Explosions erupted, and orders were barked over comms. It was loud, visceral, and, to Velen's sensibilities, disturbingly violent. "Your training places a heavy emphasis on adaptability," Velen observed. Their voice, soft and melodic, seemed at odds with the harsh cacophony of the room. "It is unstructured, chaotic." Marx gave a small, knowing smile. "That's intentional. No plan survives contact with the enemy, Commander. Our soldiers learn to think on their feet because they have to. It's the only way to survive in the unpredictable conditions of war." Velen tilted their head slightly, a gesture that conveyed both curiosity and doubt. In Axorian strategy, adaptability is achieved through precise calculation and preparation, not improvisation. Your methods seem unnecessarily perilous. Marx gestured for Velen to follow her to a nearby console. where an instructor was replaying a particularly intense segment of the simulation. On the screen, a squad of soldiers had been pinned down by enemy fire. Instead of retreating, the squad leader had directed their team to create a diversion, allowing a flanking maneuver that ultimately turned the tide of the engagement. "Watch this," Mark said. The squad leader recognized the terrain's potential and made a split-second decision. They took a risk, but it paid off. Veln studied the footage, their crystalline skin shimmering faintly as they processed the scene. A risky decision indeed. What if it had failed? Mark's expression hardened, though her tone remained measured. Then they would have learned from it. Failure is a better teacher than success, Commander. We train our soldiers to take calculated risks because hesitation can be fatal. The concept was alien to Veln, whose people relied on meticulous planning to eliminate the possibility of failure. The idea of willingly exposing oneself to risk seemed reckless, even primitive. And yet, there was an undeniable efficiency in how quickly the humans adapted to changing circumstances. They moved to the next area, where live training exercises were taking place. Here, recruits practiced clearing a series of buildings in a mock urban environment. The setting was meticulously detailed with obstacles, debris, and even holographic civilians to simulate the complexities of a real-world operation. Veln watched as a team moved through the space, their movements synchronized but not rigid. The recruits communicated in short bursts of hand signals and whispered commands, their actions coordinated yet flexible. When they encountered unexpected resistance, they adjusted their tactics without hesitation, using the environment to their advantage. "You train them to thrive in chaos," Veln said, their tone laced with both fascination and unease. "But is such chaos not a failure of order?" Marks crossed her arms, her expression thoughtful. "Chaos is a natural state of war, Commander. We don't seek to create it, but we do prepare for it. The enemy won't follow a script, and neither can we. That's why adaptability is our greatest strength." As the exercise concluded, the recruits gathered for a debriefing. Their instructor dissected their performance with clinical precision, highlighting both successes and areas for improvement. The recruits listened intently, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and determination. Veln observed them closely, their gaze lingering on the youngest members of the group. There was a rawness to these humans, a sense of fragility that seemed incongruous with the intensity of their training. Yet beneath that fragility was an undeniable resilience, a stubborn refusal to yield. It was a quality that both intrigued and unsettled Veln. "Your recruits endure much," Veln remarked as they left the training area. "Do they not resent the hardships you impose upon them?" Marx's smile was faint but genuine. "Some do, at first, but over time, they come to understand the purpose behind it. They learn that strength isn't just physical, it's mental and emotional, too. We push them, so they can discover what they're truly capable of." Veln considered this, their crystalline features unreadable. In Axorian culture, hardship was seen as an unnecessary burden, something to be avoided through careful planning and advanced technology. The idea of deliberately subjecting oneself to difficulty was both baffling and strangely admirable. Their tour continued to a quieter area of the academy, where recruits practiced tactical planning on holographic displays. Here, the atmosphere was more subdued, the focus on strategy rather than physical prowess. Veln found this environment more familiar, though the humans' approach still differed from their own. The recruits worked in teams, analyzing scenarios and proposing strategies to overcome various challenges. Unlike the rigid algorithmic methods favored by Axorians, the humans relied on debate and collaboration, their plans evolving in real time as they exchanged ideas. "This is where we teach the art of war," Mark said, her tone almost reverent. "It's not just about following orders. It's about understanding the bigger picture. Every decision matters, and every mistake is a lesson." Veln watched as one team presented their strategy to an instructor, who challenged their assumptions and forced them to defend their choices. The process was rigorous, even confrontational, but it was clear that the recruits were learning from it. You place great value on debate, Velen observed. Is it not inefficient to question each other so extensively? Marx shook her head. Not at all. It's how we refine our ideas. No single perspective is perfect, and by challenging each other, we get closer to the truth. It's messy, but it works. For a moment, Velen said nothing. Their gaze lingered on the recruits, who were now revising their strategy based on the instructor's feedback. There was an intensity to their efforts, a sense of purpose that Velen couldn't ignore. As the day's training came to an end, Marx turned to Velen. So, Commander, what do you think of our method so far? Velen hesitated, their multifaceted eyes shimmering with a complex mix of emotions. Your methods are unconventional, chaotic even, yet there is a certain logic to them, a resourcefulness that is difficult to dismiss. I do not fully understand your ways, but I see their effectiveness. Marx nodded, her expression thoughtful. That's all I can ask, Commander. Perhaps by the time your visit is over, you will see that our chaos has a purpose. As they left the training grounds, Velen couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. Humanity's methods were unlike anything they had encountered before, raw, unpredictable, and undeniably powerful. It was a truth that both intrigued and unsettled them, hinting at deeper complexities yet to be uncovered. The midday sun filtered through the tall windows of the lecture hall as Commander Velen sat quietly at the back, their translucent form blending with the light. Before them, an instructor paced the stage, his voice steady as he recounted the details of an ancient human conflict. The screen behind him displayed images of battlefields, ruined cities, and the faces of those who had fought and fallen. This was the Battle of Verdun, the instructor said, gesturing to a black-and-white photograph of a cratered landscape. A war of attrition. Hundreds of thousands died for mere inches of ground. It's a grim reminder of the cost of prolonged conflict. The recruits listened intently, some taking notes, others staring at the images with a quiet, haunted look. Velen, however, remained still, their mind racing as they processed the human obsession with cataloging and analyzing destruction. For Axorians, the past was a guide, but humans seemed to revel in dissecting its ugliest moments. After the lecture, Velen approached Captain Marx, who had been standing near the door, observing the recruits as they filed out. Your people seem to find value in reliving their darkest moments, Velen remarked, their voice carrying a note of incredulity. Why do you dwell on such tragedies? Marx folded her arms, her expression contemplative. We don't dwell, Commander. We learn. Every battle, every mistake, teaches us something. Forgetting would mean risking those same mistakes again. Do you not find it grotesque to study suffering in such detail? Velen pressed. In my culture, we seek to avoid pain, not immortalize it. Marx exhaled slowly, as though weighing her words. It's not about glorifying pain. It's about understanding it. Pain is a teacher, Commander. It shapes us, makes us stronger. The concept unsettled Velen. To them, pain was a flaw, a sign of poor planning or lack of foresight. Humans, on the other hand, seemed to embrace it as an integral part of their existence. The next stop on the tour was a smaller, more intimate classroom. Here, a group of recruits sat in a semicircle, engaged in a discussion led by a psychologist. The topic was the ethical dilemmas of warfare, and the room crackled with tension as the recruits debated. Collateral damage is unavoidable in some scenarios, one recruit argued, their voice firm but tinged with unease. The question is how we minimize it while achieving the objective. But where do we draw the line? Another countered. At what point do the ends stop justifying the means? Civilians aren't just numbers. They're people. Velen watched the exchange with growing curiosity. The recruits were young, their faces still unlined by the horrors they debated, yet they spoke with a gravity that belied their years. This wasn't the mindless indoctrination Velen had expected. It was something deeper, more nuanced. Marx leaned in slightly, her voice low. This is one of the most important parts of their training. We don't just teach them how to fight. We teach them why and when. They need to understand the weight of their decisions. Yet you still prepare them to kill, Veln said, their tone sharper than intended. Marx met their gaze evenly, because sometimes killing is the only way to protect what matters. Veln's crystalline skin shimmered with a faint ripple of discomfort. You speak as though violence is an inevitability, Captain. Is there no room in your philosophy for a world without it? Marx sighed, a trace of weariness in her eyes. I wish there were, but humanity's history tells a different story. We fight because we must, not because we want to. And while I hope for a future where that changes, I won't pretend it's here yet. The psychologist called on another recruit, a young woman with a steady voice but eyes that betrayed uncertainty. The question isn't whether war is right or wrong, she said. It's about what we do with the responsibility that comes with it. If we have the power to fight, we also have the responsibility to do it as ethically as possible. The words lingered in the air, resonating with a quiet authority. Veln studied the recruit, their multifaceted eyes narrowing slightly. Here was a human who had not yet seen war, but already understood its weight. As they left the classroom, Veln turned to Marx. Your recruits are remarkable in their way. They carry a burden of understanding that many would avoid. Yet I cannot reconcile the contradiction at the heart of your teachings. You speak of ethics, yet you train them for destruction. How can you justify such hypocrisy? Marx stopped walking and faced Veln directly. It's not hypocrisy, Commander. It's balance. We don't pretend that war is noble, but we also don't shy away from its reality. If we're going to wield power, we have to do it responsibly. That's what we teach them. For a moment, Veln said nothing. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken tensions and questions. Finally, Veln spoke, their voice softer than before. Your methods are difficult for me to accept, but I see now that they are not born of cruelty, as I first believed. There is intent, even if it is flawed. Marx nodded, her expression unreadable. That's all I ask, Commander, that you try to understand. The tour continued in silence for a time, the weight of their conversation lingering between them. Veln couldn't help but feel a growing unease, not just at humanity's methods, but at the uncomfortable truths they revealed about their own people. For all their sophistication, the Exorians had never faced the kinds of moral quandaries humans grappled with daily. They reached an observation deck overlooking the training grounds, where recruits were running drills in the fading light of day. The sight was almost serene, the golden hues of the setting sun casting long shadows across the field. Yet beneath that serenity was the ever-present hum of conflict, a reminder of humanity's dual nature. You fight to protect what you love, Veln said quietly, more to themselves than to Marx. But in doing so, you risk becoming the very thing you fear. Marx glanced at Veln, her expression thoughtful. Maybe, but that's the challenge, isn't it? To fight without losing ourselves. It's not easy and we don't always succeed. But we keep trying. Veln turned to her, their gaze inscrutable. And if you fail? Marx looked back at the recruits below, her voice steady. Then we learn and we do better next time. That's all any of us can do. The answer unsettled Veln in its simplicity, yet it carried a weight that resonated deeply. For the first time, they felt a flicker of doubt, not in humanity, but in their own certainty. The Exorian starship shimmered under the fading light as Commander Veln stood near its entrance, their translucent skin catching the warm glow of the setting sun. Around them, the sprawling human military academy buzzed with activity. Recruits marched across the grounds, instructors barked orders, and the faint echoes of distant drills drifted through the air. Yet for Veln, the noise seemed distant, muffled by the weight of their thoughts. Captain Marx stood beside them, her stance relaxed but her gaze attentive. She had been a steady presence throughout the tour, guiding Veln to the labyrinth of humanity's methods, philosophies, and contradictions. Now, as the visit came to an end, she seemed to sense the commander's inner turmoil. Leaving so soon? She asked, her tone light, but tinged with something more profound. Veln turned their heads slightly, the prismatic hues of their eyes shifting as they regarded her. "My mission here is complete, Captain. I have seen what I came to see." Mark studied them for a moment, then nodded. "And what conclusions have you drawn?" Veln hesitated, their usually fluid movements stilled as they searched for the right words. "Your people are complex. You embody a duality that is difficult to reconcile. There is both brilliance and brutality in your ways, a potential for both creation and destruction." Marks gave a faint smile, though her eyes held a seriousness that matched the weight of Veln's words. "That's humanity in a nutshell, Commander. We're not perfect, but we keep striving. We don't have the luxury of your kind's precision or foresight. All we can do is adapt and hope we make the right choices." Veln's gaze shifted to the horizon, where the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson. It reminded them of the simulated battles they had observed, the stark beauty of Earth's landscapes juxtaposed against the harsh realities of human conflict. "You have a resilience that is both admirable and troubling," Veln said softly. "In Axorian culture, we seek to eliminate struggle, to create a world where hardship is unnecessary. Yet your people seem to draw strength from it, to thrive in the very chaos we strive to avoid." Mark stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "Struggle isn't something we choose, Commander. It's something we endure. And yes, it shapes us, but it doesn't define us. What defines us is what we do with the strength we gain from it." The words lingered in the air, resonating deeply with Veln. They thought of the recruits they had observed, the young humans who had faced grueling training and ethical dilemmas with unwavering determination. For all their flaws, there was a raw sincerity to their efforts, a willingness to confront the darkness within themselves and strive for something better. "I do not know if your methods are right or wrong," Veln admitted, "but I cannot deny their effectiveness. Your people have found a way to navigate the chaos of existence with a resilience that is unique." Mark smiled faintly. "We make it up as we go, Commander, but we try to do it with purpose." Veln turned to her, their gaze piercing yet contemplative. "And that purpose is what sets you apart. It is what makes your chaos bearable, even admirable. I still find it difficult to accept, but I am beginning to understand." The two stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their conversation settling around them. Finally, Marks broke the silence, her voice soft but resolute. "I hope you'll share that understanding with your people. We're not perfect, Commander, but we're not the monsters some might think we are." Veln inclined their head, a gesture of respect. "I will relay what I have seen and learned. Your people are far from what I expected, Captain. You are both more dangerous and more promising than I could have imagined." Marks chuckled lightly, though her tone remained serious. "That sounds about right." As Veln ascended the ramp to their ship, they paused and turned back one last time. "Captain Marks," they said, their voice carrying an uncharacteristic warmth, "thank you for your candor. I believe this exchange has been as enlightening for me as it was meant to be for you." Marks nodded, her expression calm but earnest. "Safe travels, Commander. And remember, if you ever need a reminder of what humanity is capable of, both good and bad, you're always welcome here." Veln gave a small, almost imperceptible bow before disappearing into the ship. Moments later, the crystalline vessel rose silently into the sky, its surface reflecting the fading light like a prism. Marks watched until it disappeared from view, then turned back toward the academy. For Veln, the journey back to Axorian space was filled with reflection. The memories of their visit played through their mind like fragments of a puzzle, each piece adding to a picture they were only beginning to comprehend. Humanity was unlike any species they had encountered. Raw, unpredictable, and deeply flawed. Yet within that imperfection lay a resilience and adaptability that defied logic, a refusal to be bound by their limitations. As the ship sailed through the stars, Veln felt a sense of unease mingled with something else, something unfamiliar, yet not unwelcome. Hope! Perhaps, they thought, Humanity's chaos held a purpose after all.